Hi, welcome to another IELTS essay writing video. A few days ago I posted an essay to my blog, and I posted it with the sentences out of order. As an exercise, I asked online IELTS students to post the sentences in the correct order and to separate the sentences into paragraphs. There were 16 students that got involved and took the time to post responses. Those students were Marinella, Siva, Nura, Matthew, Anderson, Henry, a person named Anonymous, Lufty, Wenjiamau, Inas, Savilo, Arcana, Zialhuda, Mohammed, and Dennis. So thanks guys for taking the time to get involved. I hope the exercise was helpful. So 6 students got the answer correct, got the sentences in the correct order. Those people were Marinella, Lufty, Inas, Savilo, Arcana, and Mohammed. So well done guys, the sentences were all in the correct order and you separated the paragraphs properly. Okay, what I thought I would do is just go through the exercise from start to finish and just talk about a few ways that people could recognize where the sentences should be. And I think in doing this, it will be kind of a helpful review for us regarding how to use a cohesion in a sentence, how to strengthen a point, share an example, just kind of an overall review of essay structure. So let's go through the sentences as they appeared in my initial blog post. So these sentences are out of order. There are 14 sentences in total. And I'm not going to read each and every of the sentences, but rather I'm just going to look at the cohesive phrases that appear at the beginning of them. And just by looking at those phrases, we will get an idea for where these sentences should appear in the final essay. Okay, so the first phrase you see is following this look. So as we know, when we see this phrase, this is going to be something that's expanding upon an idea that's been brought up before. Okay, for example, now we know exactly where that's going to go, or we should anyways. This is going to be the second sentence of our supporting paragraph, one of the 2 supporting paragraphs. Both, talking about 2 ideas. If this is an argument essay, this is likely part of the outline area of the introduction paragraph. For instance, again, we know exactly where this is going to appear, and we know that it's definitely not going to appear in the same paragraph as the sentence that started with "for example," because we're sharing examples in separate paragraphs. In addition to this, okay, once again, expanding upon ideas that have been brought up before. Today, likely an opening to something. Good way to start an essay. Thus, drawing conclusions. Thus, drawing more conclusions. To capitalize on this interest. So obviously this is a sentence that appears after some sort of discussion or an example or something that has to do with an interest. It is thus expected. Okay, it has a very kind of conclusive tone to it. This is a trend. This is a trend. So we can expect to see perhaps not the word trend, but some sort of talk about a progression or a growth before this sentence is written. On the one hand, okay, now if you're bringing up several points, you would not say on the one hand at the end of those points. This is at the beginning. So we would start on the one hand, and then later somewhere in the essay, perhaps in the next paragraph, we would state however on the other hand, or in addition to this, or something like that. So on the one hand is typically used to bring up the first of several points. It can therefore be concluded. Therefore, we are drawing a conclusion, and then of course the word concluded gives us a big clue there that this is likely the final sentence in a supporting paragraph, which is a form of conclusion, or it is a sentence that appears in our concluding paragraph. And finally, although many factors have contributed to this growth. Okay, so obviously this would be a sentence referring to something that came before it, and that thing would have been talking about progression or growth or something to do with growth. Now, as you can see, all of the sentences, aside from that one sentence that had the word that started with today, all of these sentences have a form of a cohesive phrase. They have a cohesive phrase in them that is linking them to ideas that have come before, or they're establishing a pattern for delivering points. So, for example, we had that on the one hand. So this is a sentence that's kind of establishing the manner in which we are going to share points on a certain topic. Okay, so so one thing we need to remember when we're writing an essay is we have to have these phrases to show how our ideas are progressing throughout the essay. We have to make sure that the examiner knows the logic that we're using in our writing and how we are getting to the conclusions that we are drawing. Okay, so those are the sentences as they appeared out of order. Now let's look at how they should appear in the correct order. So as I mentioned, the first person to respond was Marinella, and it was kind of funny because when I looked at the response, she was the first to respond. I thought, oh gosh, she's gotten them all correct. The exercise is too easy. But actually, you know, as I mentioned before, I think a few of the students found the exercise challenging. But anyway, so we're going to look at this version of the essay and talk about how the sentences sort of work together. So the essay reads, "Today, the number of people engaging in international travel is swelling rapidly. This is a trend that does not appear to be slowing at all. Although many factors have contributed to this growth, trade opportunities and tourism are thought to be the main triggers. Both will be examined in this essay." Okay, that's the end of the first paragraph. Now, those of you that are new to essay structure, please notice the way that that Marinella has, you know, continued writing on the same line as the sentence that comes before. I think there were a few students that they had some trouble defining exactly where their paragraphs began and where they ended. So, you know, we don't have to skip a line each time. It's just when we have all of our sentences grouped together that we finish the paragraph and then we go on to the next line. So as this is establishing, we have a thesis in here. Now what we're saying is that trade opportunities and tourism are thought to be the main triggers. So that's in response to our essay question. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't read the essay question prior to getting to this. I probably should have done that. Let me get up here quickly. Okay. The essay question was just, more people are traveling today than ever before. Why do you think this is? Okay, and then our thesis was, just as I pointed out there, so why are people traveling more than before? Well, they're traveling because of trade opportunities, and they're traveling because of tourism. Okay. Okay, now we get to the first supporting paragraph here, and we start that paragraph with, "On the one hand, the increasing international awareness of growth markets is spurring development." Please take note of these words if they're new. "In the travel sector." Okay? For example, knowledge of raw resources available in African countries has piqued the interest of manufacturing and consuming nations the world over. To capitalize on this interest, many are making expeditions to establish cross-border connections with business people in the African region. Thus, it is clear that trade is one of the core reasons international travel is growing. Okay, so as I'm sure Marinella was doing as she was going through the sentences, you know, when they were mixed up, I think she was noticing that these sorts of phrases, like "for example," I mean, we wouldn't start our supporting paragraph with an example. And there was one student that did that. I believe it was Anderson. So Anderson, if you're listening, you don't want to start your supporting paragraphs with an example. So now she used "on the one hand" to deliver the first point, to show that this is the first of several points that are going to be given in support of our thesis. Okay, to capitalize on this interest. Now the interest is talking about, here we have, so this has piqued the interest of manufacturing and consuming nations. Now we continue that thought, we expand on that thought in this next sentence. And then, of course, you know, some really easy cues where that, you know, they both had to do with Africa. And then finally, the conclusion sentence. Now, how do we know this is a conclusion? Well, this ties the idea of trade back to our thesis, which is stating the reasons for international travel. Okay? So do you see how that final sentence, it ties this entire paragraph and what we're saying in this paragraph back to the central theme of the essay? And it's a very important sentence to have because it sort of brings everything together. Okay, let's go on to the second supporting paragraph. In addition to this, there we go. Just by looking at that phrase, we know that the point has been shared before, and now we're going to share a second point. Growing affluence the world over has made it possible for increasing amounts of people to engage in recreational travel. Okay, now this, I think some students were a little bit confused, but this is just sort of a fancy way to say tourism. For instance, Chinese tourist numbers are growing so quickly that major holiday destinations, such as the Eiffel Tower in Paris, are choosing to display their public signs in French, English, and Mandarin. Okay, that's the example. Thus, the unshrinking need for tourist hotspots to accommodate travelers from various countries is clear evidence that a true link between tourism numbers and international travel exists. Okay, so now what you see in the sentence is it's expanding upon the example. So we've taken the example, which is a tangible, true-to-life existence of the claim that we're making, and then we're just taking it to the next level. So we're saying that this is showing that there is really a link. I mean, because people are putting up signs in Paris, they're putting up Chinese signs in Paris. It's obvious that tourism is something that is causing the growth of international travel. Okay, and then we state that as a very clear conclusion in the final sentence. It can therefore be concluded that growing worldwide affluence is fueling a surge in international travel numbers. Now, I think some people got confused because they saw the word concluded and then they thought, okay, this is obviously something that appears in the conclusion sentence. But that's not true. This is one of the minor conclusions that we have in the essay. So as you know, at the end of your supporting paragraphs, you should be sort of coming to some kind of conclusion that kind of links, what you're saying, as I was telling you before, links what you're saying in this supporting paragraph back to your thesis. So here we see, growing worldwide affluence, as we had talked about in this paragraph, is fueling a surge in international travel numbers. So tourism and is linked to the growth of international travel. So we see the link between this paragraph and our thesis. Okay, now we get to the concluding paragraph. Following this look, it is clear that global trade opportunities and tourism are altering humanity's need for international travel. Now, there was a student, I'm not exactly sure who, that put this sentence where an outline sentence would be. So they saw, okay, here's point number 1 and point number 2, so this must be an outline sentence. But the key here is that we started with following this look. Okay, which is a phrase that that sort of, it helps to conclude something. It alludes to the idea that we've already talked about these topics. We've already talked about something, and now we're winding down and drawing a conclusion. So you would never see following this look, or at least you'd very rarely, but more often than not, you'd never see this in your introduction paragraph. This would be something that would come much later. Okay, so this is not an outline sentence. This is definitely the summary of the 2 supporting paragraphs and restatement of our thesis. It is thus expected that rates of travel will only continue to climb into the foreseeable future. And when we look at that sentence, we don't even need to look at any of the other sentences to know that this is going to be the way that we're going to finish the essay. It's an expectation, a prediction, or a recommendation. Okay, so this is a nice way to sort of finish the essay off, and to kind of, it's almost like a farewell. We're saying that this is something that's been happening. It's going to continue into the future, even beyond when the reader finishes this essay. So it's a nice way to kind of connect the essay to real life, I suppose you could say. Okay, so that's the essay as it should have appeared. I want to talk a little bit about the students that were not 100% accurate in their placing of the sentences. Siva looks like a good essay. You've separated the paragraphs correctly. All the sentences are in the right order except for one, unfortunately. This one down here. So this is a trend that does not appear to be slowing at all. That should be in your introduction paragraph. Nura, Nura, I want to talk to you because I don't see any separation here between paragraphs. It just looks like a big, massive paragraph. And so maybe you should go back and review the videos that I've made on proper essay structure. Okay, and have a look at the correct versions of the essays. I'll post a finished correct version as well, and you can compare your choice of sentence ordering to that. Matthew, things look good in the essay. The only thing that strikes me here is that I'm not sure why you chose to start your supporting paragraph with an example. So this would have been better had you had a topic sentence and then your example, and then you can properly discuss it and then draw the conclusion, which would link kind of the language and the topic sentence back to your thesis. But besides that, I mean, most of the ordering looks pretty good here. Okay, Anderson. Oh, I'm sorry. I believe I said that it was Anderson that had the example first in his supporting paragraph, but I'm mistaken. It was Matthew. Let me see here, Anderson. Okay, what was the issue here? Okay. Now, following this look, so this here is not in its correct place. It should have been somewhere else. So following this look, that's not really a way that you would bring up the second, point that you want to make in the essay. This is more of it's kind of a language to summarize. So that's the issue there. Henry, okay. Now, when I was reading through Henry's version, it looked pretty good. But again, so following this look, this is, conclusive language, and this should be not here in the introduction paragraph. And here, I'm not exactly sure why you would think that something that shares such a specific example would appear in the introduction paragraph. Because as you know, I mean, the introduction paragraph, the job it plays, the job it carries out is it acts as sort of a roadmap for the entire essay. And if you start sharing, specific examples in your introduction and drawing conclusions, it's not an introduction. Then it's more of a supporting paragraph. So keep this sort of stuff in the supporting paragraphs of the essay. Okay, not in the introduction. Okay, Anonymous. So again, I don't understand why you're skipping a line here. This is not a paragraph by itself. Again, why is there a line skip here? Why is there a line skip here? So maybe go back and just have a look at essay structure. Oh, maybe, oh, let me see. Oh, I see. Sorry, Anonymous didn't, group them as, I think he was just, posting them one after the other like this. So anyways, Anonymous, I hope that you realize that these sentences should be kind of grouped together as a single paragraph. Okay. Yeah, and so this is not the conclusion to the essay. This is the conclusion to one of the supporting paragraphs. Lutfi, good job. You're one of the 6 that got it correct. Well done. Wen Jiamao. I went through Wen Jiamao and I looked at the numbers and I matched them up. There were a few things that were missing. I think you put one of the sentences in your conclusion paragraph that it should have appeared in your introduction paragraph. But okay, I think other than that, the things looked pretty good. Okay, Enas, you got it all correct. Good for you. Well done. Servilo also got it correct. Well done, Servilo. Arcana. Good for you. Well done. Correctly. Just again, I mean, we want to be. I know that you were just kind of listing them, the same as Anonymous was, but we want to be grouping these into paragraphs. Okay, Jalhuda. Let's see. Now, it looks fairly correct. On the one hand, for example, to capitalize on this interest, thus it is clear that trade... Okay, I don't know what's going on here. This should be, you know, on its own line. This is starting the second supporting paragraph, but it looks like there might have just been a formatting error. Maybe something to do with your keyboard, or I'm not sure. Okay, then you have, for instance, thus it can therefore be concluded. I hope that this 13 is being grouped with this paragraph and you're not making it into its own. But yeah, it looks like most of the sentences are in the right order. They're just kind of awkwardly placed. Mohammed got it all correct. Well done, Mohammed. Good job. And Dennis. Let's see here. So, through this growth, the opposite true thought to be in triggers. This is a trend that does not appear to be slowing at all. Okay, yeah. So number 3 should come before number 2. And then because if you leave it here, it makes it awkward because then we mentioned both, and you know that's jumping back 2 sentences to information presented there. Let me see. On the one hand, for instance, okay, it looks good. It is clear the global trade opportunities in tourism are all to humanity's need. Okay, in addition to this, for example, to capitalize on this interest. Okay. Oh, let's see here. Did the oh, okay, I see. So you've put the Chinese example first. Let's see. So international awareness of growth markets. Yeah. So I mean, the Chinese example more fits with the recreational travel bit. See, recreational travel, and then the example. So here, the example is talking about African countries and the interest of, you know, manufacturing and consuming nations all over the world. This is they're not traveling to Africa, you know, for recreational endeavors. They're traveling there because they want to establish business and create connections, that sort of thing. So these don't fit together like that. Okay, it can therefore be concluded that growing worldwide affluence is fueling a surge, is thus expected. Okay, good. So anyways, the majority of it looks pretty good. Anyway, as I was mentioning, I hope that the lesson was helpful. Please, you know, send some feedback and let me know what I can change to make it better next time. Thank you for watching. Have a very nice weekend.